रवि रवि दूसरी दे बेटा, ये कई बार ना लगती नहीं है सही।
Exactly.
Please start.
Before campus, we will groom.
Ma'am, please unmute. Okay.
Acha, acha.
Yes,
Okay, I
sir.
will let you know, ma'am. Acha.
Now please start, ma'am.
You already dropped mail, so I can just recap.
Should I start, sir?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Sure.
Write the
Good morning, everyone. So, welcome to all of you. Today we are starting the mathematics portion of your CMA Foundation paper number 5, Business Mathematics and Statistics. So today we are covering the basic concepts which you have done during your school level as well. So let's start the class. So the first topic that we are going to discuss today, that is ratios. So first thing you must know about ratios. So what is ratios? Ratios is basically comparison of two quantities. So ratios is comparison. Whenever we have to compare two or more than two quantities, then we generally use ratios. But there is one precondition of ratios. What's the condition? The condition is the items that we are comparing, they must be defined by same unit. Means they must be expressed in same unit of measurement. For example, suppose I have been given two items whose quantities are given. So it is very necessary that if I want to compare the two quantities, then the quantity should be expressed both either in kilograms or in grams or in quintals. Whatever the unit is, the unit must be same. So suppose the first item, the quantity of first item is 45 kilogram and the second item is zero point 0.5, you can say 500 gram. We can say 500 gram, the second item is. So the unit of both the items are different. So we have to convert them into same units. So either convert kilogram into grams or grams into kilogram. So if it is 45 kilograms, so we can say this is 45,000 grams and this is 500 grams. So this way we can compute the ratio. And ratio is expressed either using single column or we can use it, express it in the form of fraction as well. So if I say the comparison of two quantities is, the ratio is, that is 90:1. So the most important thing is the unit must be same. The items which you are comparing, their units must be same. So ratios are expressed either in fractions in the form of P upon Q form, or we can express in the form of P colon Q. If there are just two items, we are comparing just two items, we can represent them as fractions. But if there are more than two items we are comparing, then they must be expressed in this form: P is to Q is to R is to S. So if we are comparing them we are expressing them in fraction form, then first term is called the first term is called antecedent and second term is called consequent. So if we are expressing it in fraction form. So like we can say if we want to compare, so A is called antecedent and B is called consequent. So there are certain properties of ratios. What are these properties? Suppose I have the ratio x is to y. We can express them in fractions. If we multiply any constant to both the terms of ratio, or I say I divide the constant to both terms of the ratio, ratio remains the same. There is no change in ratio. This is the first property. Second thing is, if we want to compare two or more ratios, like which one is greater or which one is smaller, only one thing you have to do, you have to make the denominator equal. So if the denominator is equal, the ratio whose numerator is greater, that is greater ratio, and whose numerator is less, that is called smaller ratio. For example, if I have to compare 3/4 and 8/12, so what I have to do, I have to make the denominator equal by taking LCM. So denominator is 12. So the first term of the first ratio is 9 and the first term of second ratio is 8, which shows that 9 is greater than 8. That means our first ratio is greater than the second ratio. Now we have different types of ratios. So what are the different types? We have inverse ratio. Now what is inverse ratio? If we just inverse both the terms, like suppose my ratio is A is to B, then inverse ratio of A is to B is B is to A. That means antecedent becomes consequent and consequent becomes antecedent. That is called inverse ratios. Second, we have ratio of equality. Now, what is ratio of equality? If both the terms of the ratio are equal, that means first term, we have the ratio A/B in such a way that A is equal to B. That means both the terms of the ratio are equal. So if I say A/B, that is equal to 1. This is called ratio of equality. Next, we have ratio of inequality. Now, what is ratio of inequality? If both the terms of the ratio are not equal, means we have the ratio A is to B in such a way that A is not equal to B. So this is called ratio of inequality because A/B is not equal to 1. So when we have ratio of inequality, then we again have two types of ratios. Now, what are these two types of ratios? These are, the first one is we have ratio of greater inequality and second is ratio of lesser inequality. So we have two types of ratios in case of ratio of inequality. What are these? We have ratio of greater inequality. We have greater inequality and we have lesser inequality. So when we talk about greater inequality, in greater inequality, the first term is greater than second term. So when we compute the ratio, ratio is always greater than 1. So this is called greater inequality. And if the first term is less than the second term, then when we find the ratio, the value is less than 1. This is called lesser inequality. Now afterwards, we have the next ratio that is called duplicate ratio. Now what is duplicate ratio? Suppose my ratio is A is to B. So the duplicate ratio of A is to B is A square, we call it B square. That means ratio of square of both the terms of the ratio. This is called ratio of duplicate ratio. Similarly, we have triplicate ratio. So in case of triplicate ratio, we have A is to B, that is equal to A cube is to B cube. That means cube of terms, ratio of cube of terms of ratio, that is called triplicate ratio. Next, we have subduplicate ratio. Now subduplicate ratio is ratio of square root of both the terms of the ratio. So that means subduplicate ratio of A is to B is root A is to root B. Similarly, we have subtriplicate ratio. Now, subtriplicate, as the name says, it's called cube root. So, if ratio is A is to B, then subtriplicate ratio is cube root of A is to cube root of B. Next, we have compound ratio. Now, what is compound ratio? Product of two or more ratios. Compound ratio is product of two or more ratios, that is called compound ratios. Now suppose the first ratio is A is to B, second ratio is C is to D. So we'll say A upon B into C upon D. That is called compound ratio. So compound ratio is product of first terms is to product of second terms. And one thing always keep in mind, inverse of a ratio is never equal to original ratio. Inverse of a ratio is never equal to original ratio. Suppose we have been given ratio 3 is to 4. So inverse ratio is 4 is to 3. So 3 upon 4 is never equal to 4 is to 3. This is true only when we have ratio of equality. So if we have ratio of equality, then ratio and its inverse both are equal. So these are the basic terms of ratio. So we have to find out different types of ratios. Now, the most important thing is you have to keep it in mind when the quantity is increased by given ratio, okay, then you have to multiply the quantity by greater. Suppose you have been given two items are in the ratio E is to B. So if first item is given and you have to find out second item, then how to find out second item? That is first item divided by term of the ratio, because A represents first item and B represents second item. So whichever item is given, the term of the ratio that reflects that item, that is in the denominator, and the item which we have to find out, that is in numerator. So that means first term divided by A into B. So this is called your second term. Now suppose we say the ratio of weights of two persons is 7 is to 8. Ratio of weight of two persons is 7 is to 8. If the weight of first person is 56 kg, then find out the ratio of the weight of second one. Now 56 kg represents the weight of first person. So what you have to do, the weight of first person divided by the term that represents first person. So term of ratio that represents person, that is in the denominator, and term of ratio that represents the second term, second person, which we have to calculate, that will be in the numerator. That means the weight of second person is 64 kg. I hope this is clear to everyone, how to find out the different ratios or different terms. If we have been given terms of the ratio, then how we can find out the values that are related to that ratios. So that is very important. Next thing, Richa, the next thing what we have to do, that is related to here. I have already told you, suppose you have been given any ratio. If we multiply or divide any constant, then there will be no change. But if we add or subtract any constant in both the terms of the ratio, then it is not equal to your original ratio. So this is a very important property you have to keep in mind. Multiplying or dividing a constant to both the terms won't affect the result, but addition or subtraction of a quantity change the ratio. So these are the concept of ratios. Let's move to the second part, that is called proportion. Proportion is directly related to ratios. We say comparison of two items is called ratio, and proportion is equality of two ratios. Equality of two ratios is called proportion. That means when two ratios are equal, then we say the ratios are in proportion to each other. That means suppose we have the one ratio A is to B, second ratio C is to D, both are equal. So that means we can represent in this way, or we can represent by double colon as well. So this double colon represents proportion. If we write in algebraic form, A upon B, that is equal to C upon D. Now if we cross multiply it, this is equal to AD equals to BC. Now if we look at the proportion, A and D, they are called extreme items. and B and C, they are in middle. They are called mean items. So that means if two ratios are in proportion, then the property is product of extreme items is equal to product of mean items. So if we want to check whether two ratios are in proportion or not, you have to just find out the product of extreme items and product of mean items. If the product of both the items are equal, that means ratios are in proportion. And if they are not equal, then ratios are not in proportion. So first and fourth quantity of the proportion, they are called extreme items, and second and third item, middle item, they are called mean items. So suppose if I say find out 5, 7, 35, 49, they are in proportion or not. So you have to just find out the product of extreme items as well as the product of mean items. So product of extreme item is 5 into 49. That is equal to 235, and product of mean item is 7 into 35. 7 5s are 35. 7 3s are 21. 24. 5 9s are 45. Yahan pe bhi 24. So this is equal. That means they are in proportion. Now if I say 6 is to 12 and 4 is to 3, whether they are in proportion or not. So 12 4s are 48, 6 3s are 18. So they are not in proportion to each other. So this is called proportion. While doing proportion, we have different types. There is one thing that is called continued proportion. If three quantities, the thing is this, in case of proportion, we have to find out different types of proportion. The first one is we have to find out fourth proportion. So whenever we have to find out fourth proportion, then that means we have been given three items A, B, C, and we have to find out the fourth item. So write it in this way, A, B, C and question mark. Now A and question mark are extreme items, B and C are mean items. Now suppose the question mark is X. So how to find out fourth proportion? AX is equal to BC. So X is equal to BC upon A. This is how you can find out the fourth proportion. Now suppose we have been given any question, like so we can say 5, 20, 6 and question mark. So we have to find out the fourth proportion. That means product of extremes is equal to product of means. So we took it as X. 5X is equal to 120. So X is equal to 24. So this is the fourth proportion. Now next thing is sometimes they'll ask you find out the third proportion of A and B. Now whenever they'll ask you find out the third proportion, then there will be two items given and you have to find out the third item. Now you know that in case of proportion we need four items, two extreme items and two mean items. Then how to find out proportion in case of three items? So in that case, A is your extreme item, B is your mean item, and the middle term plays the double role. So it can be written in this form, A is to B in proportion to B is to question mark. So this is how we can find out the third proportion. So again, product of extremes is equal to product of means. So this is equal to AX is equal to B square. So X is equal to B square upon A. So this is the third proportion of A and B. Now suppose we'll say कि we have to find out the third proportion to 16 and 36. So I have already told you in case of third proportion you have been given just two items. So that means you have to find out the third item. So write out in the proportion form 16 is to 36 in proportion to 36 is to X. So this is 16x is equal to 36 into 36. So x is equal to 36 into 36 upon 16. So this is equal to 81. Now next thing is they can ask you how to find out the mean proportion. Mean proportion of A and B. Now what is this mean proportion? That means you have to find out the middle item. And in case of mean proportion, you have been given just two items again, A and B. That means the given items are extreme items and you have to find out the middle item. So you already know whenever we have just three items, then the middle term plays a double role and we have to find out the middle term. So if we write out down this items in proportion form, then this is equal to A is to X in proportion to X is to B. Now again, product of extremes is equal to product of means. So x square, that is equal to AB. So x is equal to square root of AB. So this is how we can find out mean proportion. Now we have been given question, find out mean proportion between 0.08 and 0.18. So 0.08 and 0.18, and we have to find out the mean proportion, that means middle term x. So this is written in this way, 0.08 is to x in proportion to x is to 0.18. So that is x square is equal to 0.08 into 0.18. So x is equal to square root of 0.08 into 0.18. So this is equal to 0.0144, which is equal to 0.12. So mean proportion is 0.12. Now next thing is we have certain rules. Okay, let's discuss the rules of proportion, or we can say these are also called properties of proportion. Now, what are the different properties of proportion? Let's discuss. So the various properties of proportion are, the first one is that is called invertendo. So let's discuss the properties of proportion. So properties of proportion or rules of proportion, the first rule is that is called alternando. Now alternando relate to alternate word. Now what it says, suppose we have been given two ratios, x is to y, that is proportion to p is to q. That means xq is equal to py, or we can say x upon y is equal to p upon q. Now alternando means if we alternate extreme items or we alternate mean items, then again there is no change in proportion. So if I write down q upon y is equal to p upon x, there will be no change, because in this case also xq is equal to py, in this case also xq is equal to py. Now if I alternate mean items, then it becomes x upon p is equal to y upon q. Again there is no change because qx is equal to py. This is called alternando. Alternando means alternating either extreme items with each other or mean items with each other. That is called alternando. But you are alternating them with each other, mean items with each other. We are not alternating extreme with mean. We are alternating one extreme with another extreme and one mean with another mean. This is called your first one property, that is called alternando. Now second property says invertendo. Invertendo comes from the word inverse. Now what is inverse? Suppose we have been given x upon y is equal to p upon q. It means they are in proportion to each other. So that means inverse of both the ratios are also in proportion to each other. That is basically depicted by invertendo. Inverse of both the ratios are in proportion to each other. That means if I inverse first ratio, so then it becomes x upon y becomes y upon x. And if I inverse p upon q, this becomes q upon p. So y upon x is equal to q upon p. So this becomes py is equal to qx. Now just look at the difference. In case of normal equation, our extreme items are x and q and mean items are p and y. This is written in this way, x is to y in proportion to p is to q. But when we have done inverse of both the ratios, then this becomes y is to x in proportion to q is to p. That means our extreme items become mean items and mean items become extreme items. This is called invertendo. We can take it with an example as well. Suppose we have been given two ratios, that is 2 is to 3 in proportion to 12 is to 18. So just take it out, 12 3s are 36, 18 2s are 36. Now invertendo says if we inverse both the ratios, so that means 3 is to 2 also in proportion to 18 is to 12. Again see 18 2s are 36, 12 3s are 36. This is invertendo. And what alternando says? Alternating extreme or mean item. So if I say 18 is to 3 is in proportion to 12 is to 2. So 12 3s are 36, 18 2s are 36. And if I say 2 is to 12 in proportion to 3 is to 18. Again 12 3s are 36, 18 2s are 36. This is invertendo and alternando. Now third property is componendo. Now what componendo says, suppose we have been given two ratios x into y in proportion to p is to q. So that means x upon y is equal to p upon q. Now what the next step we have done, adding 1 on both sides. Now, you know it very well, in case of an equation, if we add or subtract or multiply or divide any constant on both sides, then your equation remains the same. So that means x upon y plus 1, that is equal to p upon q plus 1. That means x plus y upon y is also in same proportion to p plus q upon q. Let's take an example. 2 is to 3 is in proportion to 12 is to 18. Now they are in proportion to each other. Now what we have done, we have added 1 on both sides. 12 upon 18 plus 1. So this becomes 5 by 3 and this becomes 30 by 18. Now again if we check it out, 18 5s are 90, 30 3s are 90. They are in proportion to each other. This is called componendo. Clear everyone? Yes, Bacha, your comments are now visible to me. So if you have any doubts, you can write it in the chat box, Bacha. So next thing is, Bacha, after this, we have the next thing, that is after componendo, the next property is dividendo. Now what dividendo says, suppose we have been given two ratios, x is to y is in proportion to p is to q. Now in the componendo, we have added 1 in both sides. Now in componendo, what we'll do, subtracting 1 on both sides. So that means x minus y upon y are also in proportion to p minus q upon q. Let's check it out. Suppose we have been given equation 5 is to 3 is in proportion to 20 is to 60. 20 is to 12. So let's check it out whether they are in proportion. 23 is a 60, 12 5s are 60. Now what we have done, in numerator, subtract the denominator upon 3. Again in numerator, subtract the denominator and denominator as it is. So this becomes 2 upon 3 is in proportion to 8 upon 12. Now if we cross multiply, 12 2s are 24, 8 3s are 24. Again they are in proportion. This is the concept of componendo and dividendo individually. Now next thing, now we combine both the properties. We'll say componendo and dividendo. The first one is componendo and dividendo, and second one is dividendo and componendo. Now, only difference is in the first scenario, the componendo is first and dividendo is second, and in second case, dividendo is first. That means our componendo equation says A plus B upon B is in proportion to C plus D upon D. Dividendo says A minus B upon B is in proportion to C minus D upon D. When we say componendo and dividendo, then divide 1 by 2. We have to divide 1 by 2. That means componendo is in numerator and dividendo is in denominator. So that means A plus B upon B upon A minus B upon B is in proportion to C plus D upon D upon C minus D upon D. Now B cancel, D cancel. That means A plus B upon A minus B is in same proportion to C plus D upon C minus D. Let's check it out. We have been given 12 is to 18 in proportion to 16 is to 24. So let's check it out. 16 18s are 18 into 16. So this is 288, and we say 12 into 24, that is again 288. So what we have done 12 plus 18 upon 12 minus 18 is in proportion to 16 plus 24 upon 16 minus 24. So this is 30 upon minus 6 is in proportion to 40 upon minus 8. Again, check it out. 38s are 240, 640s are 240. This is called componendo and dividendo. And when we say dividendo and componendo, then we divide second by first. That means dividendo is in numerator and componendo is in denominator. That means A minus B upon A plus B is in proportion to C minus D upon C plus D. This is called componendo and dividendo, dividendo and componendo. Next property we have addendo. Now addendo applies in those situations when more than two ratios are in proportion, like A is to B is in proportion to C is to D, in proportion to E is to F, in proportion to G is to H. That means the sum of first terms A plus C plus E plus G ratio sum of second term. They are also in same proportion. Now, for example, we have been given 3 is to 2 in proportion to 18 is to 12, in proportion to 12 is to 8, in proportion to 15 is to 10. Now, suppose we have been given in this. So, sum of first terms 3 plus 18, 21, 21 plus 12, 33, 33 plus 15, 48. Sum of second terms 12 to 14, 14, 8, 22, 22, 10, 32. Now they again in same ratio. How we can find it out? 16 3s are 48, 16 2s are 32. So again they are in same proportion. And last property is subtrahendo. Now subtrahendo says if more than two ratios are in proportion, A is to B in proportion to C is to D, in proportion to E is to F, in proportion to G is to H. That means the difference of first terms and difference of second terms are also in same proportion. That means A minus C minus E minus G ratio B minus D minus F minus H. They are also in same proportion. This is called subtrahendo. For example, suppose we have been given any equation, like we can say we'll say 48 is to 32 in proportion to 2 is to 3 is to 2. Fine. So 3 is to 2 in proportion to 15 is to 10 in proportion to 6 is to 4. That means 48 minus 3 45, 45 minus 15 30, 30 minus 6 24. 32 minus 2, 30, 30 minus 10, 20, 20 minus 4, 16. So they are also in 8 3s are 24, 8 2s are 16, same proportion. So these are the different properties of proportion. I hope this is clear. So these are the different rules, properties of proportion. We have invertendo, alternando, componendo, dividendo, componendo and dividendo, dividendo and componendo, and we have this thing, we have subtrahendo, and the next property is we have addendo. Clear? So these are the different properties of proportion. Now let's discuss the another topic. So let's have your book. So the next thing is, after discussing all the properties of proportion, let's solve a few questions. Now suppose we have been given this thing. So 4x minus 3z upon 4c is equal to this, is equal to this. Then show that each ratio. Now this is again we have tell na, if more than two ratios are in proportion, then the sum of first terms and sum of second terms, they are also in same proportion. So what we have done by applying the property addendo. We have applied the property addendo. So addendo says 4x minus 3z plus 4z minus 3y plus 4y minus 3x. Now what it becomes? 4x minus 3x, x. 4y minus 3y, y. 4z minus 3z, z. And in denominator we have 4c plus 3b plus 2a. So upon 2a plus 3b plus 4c. Na? So by applying this property, yeah, they are also in the ratio this. So next thing is, let's move to the next question. Now next question says, sometimes you have been given the thing is this, ki if A1, A2 up to AN be continued proportion. That means A1 upon A2, that is equal to A2 upon A3, that is equal to A3 upon A4, that is equal to AN minus 1 upon AN. So if I add these, so it becomes A1 into, we can say this is equal to K. So whenever we have been given terms equal, that is equal to K. So what it means, you can say A1 upon A2 into A2 upon A3. If we multiply all these terms, then this becomes A1 upon AN. So the thing is this, A1 is equal to KA2. A2 is equal to KA3. A3 is equal to KA4. So if you check it out, this becomes your GP. This becomes your GP. So if we again add it, but it becomes A1 plus A2 plus A3. So this is what they have done, K per n minus 1, that is equal to product of all these terms. So when we multiply all these terms, then the thing is this A2 cancel A3. So we have A1 upon AN. So K per n minus 1, that is A1 upon A2 per n minus 1. So because the powers are same, that means the terms are also same. So A1 upon AN, that is equal to A1 upon A2 per n minus 1. So the next thing is, this is basically the concept of proportion. Now, how to solve different types of statements? If we have been given questions in statements, then how we can solve these questions? Now, there are certain things you have to keep it in mind. Ki, if we have been given variation directly, like if I say ki x and y are directly related to each other, so how we can find it out? Let's first practice a few questions, then we'll move to the next concept. Now the question says, the marks obtained by 4 examinees are as follows. A is to B, that is 2 is to 3. B is to C, that is equal to 4 is to 5. And C is to D, that is equal to 7 is to 9. Now you want to find out the continued ratio. Now what continued ratio means? We have to find out the ratio between all the 4 persons. So in that case, we have to combine these ratios. In the first 2 ratios, B is common. A is to B, B is to C. So if we keep the coefficient of B equal, we can easily combine them. So the ratio of A is to B is 2 is to 3. And ratio of B is to C, that is 4 is to 5. Now I want the coefficient of B should be same. How I can make it same? I multiply the first ratio by 4 and second ratio by 3. So this becomes 8 is to 12 and 12 is to 15. Now the coefficient of B is equal. That means A is to B is to C, that is equal to 8 is to 12 is to 15. Now C is to D is 7 is to 9. Again, C is common in both. So whenever one term is common, you have to make the coefficient of that term same. So 15 and 7. So how we can do it? We'll multiply it with 7 and we'll multiply it with 15. So this becomes 56, 84, 105, and this becomes 105 and 135. So now the continued ratio is 56, 84, 105 and 135. So this way we can make the terms equal. Now similarly, suppose we have been given two numbers are in the ratio 3 is to 5. If 10 be subtracted from each of them, the remainders are in the ratio 1 is to 5. So whenever you have been given certain terms, numbers in the ratio, then we assume that suppose the first number is 3x and second number is 5x. We have subtracted 10 from both the numbers. Then the difference remainders are in the ratio 1 is to 5. Now this is our proportion. Simply cross multiply 15x minus 50, that is equal to 5x minus 10. So 15 minus 5, 10x is equal to minus 10 plus 50, 40. So x is equal to 4. So first number is 12 and another number is 20. So this way we can find out the questions. So sometimes the question are in this way. The prime cost of an article was 3 times the value of material used. Right? The cost of raw material was increased in the ratio 3 is to 4 and productive wages was increased in the ratio 4 is to 5. Find the prime cost of an article which could formally be made for rupees 180. So initially the prime cost we have to find the prime cost of an article which could formally be made for rupees 180. Now this is the primary cost of an article was 3 times the value of material used. So cost of raw material was increased in the ratio 3 is to 4. So that means suppose wages are X and raw material is Y. So total cost becomes X plus Y. Prime cost becomes X plus Y. Now we have been given prime cost is equal to 180 and the prime cost of an article was 3 times the material used. Iska matlab if material used is Y, then 3Y is equal to 180. So that means Y is equal to 60. And x plus y is equal to 180. So if y is 60, then it becomes x is equal to 120. That means our wages are 120 and material used is 60 and prime cost is 180. Now this says कि raw material was increased in the ratio 3 is to 4. So now the raw material is y. So मैंने आपको कहा this value represents original. And now the material was increased in the ratio 3 is to 4. So original item divided by 3 into 4. So this becomes 80 rupees. Similarly, wages is 120. That represents old wages. So the term of old wages is 4 and the term of new wages is 5. So this becomes 150. So now the wages is 150 and material used is 80 and our prime cost is now 230. So this way you can solve the question. So there is variation. Variations are of two types. One is direct variation and second is indirect variation. If you have been given that x is directly related to y, x is directly related to y, so that means x upon y is equal to k. And if it says x is inversely related to y, that means x is to 1 by y, that is equal to k. So you have to understand this concept कि whenever there is a direct variation, that means x ratio y is equal to k. And when there is indirect variation, then x ratio 1 is to y, that is equal to k. So this thing you have to keep it in mind. So these are the ratios and proportions. We have to quickly solve all the questions. We have to thoroughly quickly do the all the concepts because we have a very limited time. So that is basically ratios and proportion. Next thing, the next concept is time value of money and annuity. So this is very important concept, time value of money. Now, what is this time value of money? Whatever money that is lying at your home, which is not earning anything, you want to invest that money so that you can earn some returns from that money. This is called time value of money. So basically, time value of money is called interest. And interest is consideration. Consideration means whatever return you are getting. So consideration in lieu of money borrowed or money invested, that is called your interest. So interest is generally denoted by I. So whenever we study the concept of interest, three concepts you have to keep it in mind. The first thing is principal. The principal is actual amount borrowed or invested, that is called principal. Actual amount borrowed or invested, that is called principal. Rate of interest is percentage charge or return per annum. Whatever you are getting, percentage charge or return per annum annually. For the amount you have borrowed or invested, that is called rate of interest and generally it is denoted by R. Time period is the period for which you have borrowed the money or invested the money and generally the time period is in years. So these are the three basic concepts that you have to keep in mind while computing the interest. Now, when we talk about interest, we have two types of interest. One is simple interest and another is compound interest. Now, I'll explain the difference between the both using example. So, let's explain it. So, what is simple interest? Simple interest is when we charge interest on principal value. When we charge interest on principal value, that is called simple interest. And when we charge interest on amount, so basically, let's take an example. Interest is of two types. One is simple interest and another is compound interest. Now, simple interest is when interest is charged on principal value. I have already explained the concept of principal. Principal is whatever the money you have invested or borrowed, that is called principal value. So when you charge interest on principal, then it is called interest. And what is compound interest? When interest is charged on amount outstanding at the beginning of the year, that is called compound interest. It means you identify whatever the amount is outstanding at the beginning, you charge interest on that amount, that is called compound interest. Now, what is amount? Amount is principal plus interest earned during previous year. So this is called amount, interest earned during previous year. So that is the basic difference. Ki simple interest provides interest on principal, but compound interest provides interest on amount. Now suppose our principal is 1 lakh. Rate of interest is 10% per annum and time period is 5 years. Now explain the simple interest and compound interest. In case of simple interest, principal is 1 lakh. So first year you will get interest on principal, that is 1 lakh into 10%. That is equal to 10,000. Second year again, we'll find out what is the principal, that is 1 lakh. So 10%, that is equal to 10,000. In the third year again, same thing, because principal remains the same, bacha. Principal never changes. So that's why when principal remains the same, that means simple interest also remains the same. So every year you will get same amount of interest. That is the concept of simple interest. But when we talk about compound interest, so when we talk about compound interest, the thing is this, in case of compound interest, we charge interest on amount outstanding at the beginning of the year. Whatever the amount is outstanding at the beginning, we find out interest on that. Now, in the first case, if I say in the first year, principal and amount remains the same because till now we haven't earned any interest. So in case of compound interest, first year principal and amount remains the same. So we'll get same interest. In case of simple interest as well, we get 10,000. In case of compound interest as well, we get 10,000. But in second year, the amount becomes 1,10,000. Now our amount is 1,10,000. So 1,10,000, 10% rate of interest will yield 11,000 compound interest. So in case of simple interest, we get flat 10,000. But in case of compound interest, our interest keeps on increasing because it provides interest on interest as well. It provides interest on interest as well. It will give you interest on interest as. Now in third year, our amount becomes 1,10,000 plus 11,000. That becomes 1,21,000. So we charge interest at amount. So that becomes 12,100. Now, in case of simple interest, every year you get same 10,000 amount of interest. So total interest earned by you in 5 years is 50,000. But in case of compound interest, now see in the fourth year, our amount becomes 1,32,000 or 33,100 into 10%. That becomes 13,310. Now in fifth year, it becomes 10,464 this into 10%. So that becomes 14,641. So total interest that you have earned in 5 years in case of compound interest, that is 2, 3, 4, 3, 7, 4, 11. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that means you get 61,051 as compound interest, whereas you will get 50,000 in case of simple interest. So there are few points which you have to remember. The first point is in first year, simple interest is equal to compound interest because principal and amount are same. Second thing, simple interest remains constant throughout the time period. Simple interest remains constant throughout the period. Whereas compound interest keeps on increasing. Compound interest keeps on increasing every year. Now just look at the example. Simple interest remains constant, but compound interest keeps on increasing. 10,000 to 11,000, then 12,000, then 13,000, then 14,000. Okay, so it keeps on increasing because it provides interest on interest as well. It provides interest on interest as well. So these are the two important points that you have to keep in mind while computing questions of simple and compound interest. Now let's solve a few questions of compound interest. We'll take an example from your book. So let's say the question has been given in your book. So we'll say Gopi borrowed 1200 from Siva Reddy at 9% simple interest per annum for 3 years. How much Siva should get from Gopi as simple interest? So that means borrowed 1200, this is the principal, 9% is rate of interest, time period is 3. So whenever we have to find out simple interest, our formula is principal into rate into time upon 100. So principal is 1200, rate of interest is 9%, time period is 3 years. So total simple interest is 9 3s are 27, 27 that is into 12, that is rupees 324. And if you want to find out the amount, whatever the amount we are getting, because this is just the simple interest. If they ask you amount, then amount is principal plus simple interest. So principal is 1200 and simple interest is 324. So total amount you will get, that is 1524 rupees. So these are the different formulas. This is simply the formula of simple interest and amount. Now suppose you have been given simple interest and you have to find out some missing item, like you have to find out principal. Then principal is simple interest into 100 upon rate into time. You have to find out rate, simple interest into 100 upon principal into time. And if you want to find out the time, so simple interest into 100, principal into rate. Sometimes you have to find out the amount directly. So in that case, the formula becomes principal plus simple interest. P plus simple interest formula is P into R into T upon 100. So if I take P common, then my formula for amount is P1 plus RT upon 100. So this is how we can find out the amount. So these are the different formulas. Now suppose the question is Sumit borrowed 7500 at 14.5% per annum for 2.5 years. Find the amount he had to pay after that period. Now they want to know the amount. They don't want to know the simple interest. They want to find out the amount. So formula for amount I have already calculated, that is P1 plus RT upon 100. So principal is 7500, 1 plus rate is 14.5, time is 2.5 upon 100. So simply calculate the value using calculator, that is allowed in your syllabus, that is allowed as per your curriculum. So this is, we can take the help of this calculator. So we have been given 14.5 into 2.5 divided by 100. So this is this plus 1 and into 7500. So this is my amount 10,218.75. So this is the direct formula to find out the amount. Now, if we want to find out any missing information, like question says, what sum of money will yield rupees for 1407 as interest? Now, this is your simple interest in 1.5 year at 14% simple interest. Now we have to find out principal. So formula is simple interest into 100 upon rate into time. So simple interest is 1407 into 100, rate is 14% and time is 1.5 year. So if we calculate 1407 into 100 divided by 14 divided by 1.5. So our answer is 6700. So principal is 6700. Now, similarly, in the next question, what they say, a sum of rupees 1200 was lent out for rupees 2 years at simple interest. So the lender got 1536 in all. So lender got one. So this is the amount. And we have to find out the rate of interest. Sum of rupees 1200, you have been given principal. So that means simple interest is amount minus principal. This is 336. Now we have to find out rate. So simple interest into 100 upon principal into time. So simple interest is 336 into 100 upon principal is 1200 and time is 2 years. So simply divide 336 by 12. So after dividing 336 divided by 12, so this becomes divided by 2. So our rate of interest is 14% per annum. Now next thing, at what percentage of simple interest will a sum become double of itself? That means if a sum is 100, that means principal is 100, your amount will become double, that is 200. So that means simple interest is amount minus principal, that is 100. And time period is 5.5 years. So we have to find out rate percent. So rate percent is simple interest into 100 upon principal into time. So simple interest is 100 into 100 upon principal is 100 and time period is 5.5. So 100 divided by 5.5, that is equal to 100 divided by 5.5, that is equal to 18.215. Okay, so this is your answer. Now next question says, in a certain time, 1200 becomes 1560 at 10% simple interest. So 1200 is principal, 1560 is amount and rate of interest is 10%. So simple interest becomes amount minus principal, that is 360. So we'll find out this time period. So time period becomes simple interest into 100 upon principal into rate. So 12 threes are 36, 0. That means in 10 years, the amount becomes 1560. Find the principal that will become this at 8% at same time. Now we have to find out principal. And this is amount. So I have told you the formula of amount, that is P 1 plus RT upon 100. That means principal is equal to amount upon 1 plus RT upon 100. So amount is 2232 upon 1 plus rate of interest is 10%, time 8%. Rate of interest is 8%, time is 10 upon 100. So this becomes 2232 divided by 1.08. How it becomes 1.24? Time is 3 years. Our time is 12 threes are 36. So we have the interest, that is 360 into 100. Principal is 1200 and rate of interest is, what is this 3? Sorry, this is not 3. Rate of interest is 10%. That means number of years are 3. So there is a calculation mistake we have done. So here the rate of interest is 3, 10%. So 1200 zeros all cancel. 12 threes are 36. That means time period is 3. So if time period is 3, so here also 1 plus R into T. So that becomes 8 into 3. So that becomes 2232 upon 1.24. So by dividing 2232 by 1.24, that is equal to 1800. So 1800 becomes 2232 at 8% per annum in same time. I hope this is clear to you, everyone. What happened if 5,000 is paid in 1,10,000, can we take interest on 1,05,000? I am not able to understand your question. What happened if 5,000 is paid in 1,10,000? Can we take interest on 1,05,000? So please explain your question. Your question is not clear. So please write down the question in proper way. What is this 1,10,000? What is 5,000? So please explain this thing clearly. So next thing is, after doing this, we have these are the different varieties of question in case of simple interest. Fine. So this is how we can find out simple interest, principal, rate, and time. Now again, the next question is divide rupees 2,760 in two parts. So that means 2,760 should be divisible in two parts such that interest on first part at the rate of 12.5% per annum for 2 years is equal to simple interest on other part at 12.5% per annum for 3 years. The thing is this, in this case, you have to clearly define what are your different parts. Now, suppose my first part is X, then that means the second part is 2,760 minus X. Now, simple interest on first part is X into 12.5 upon 100 into 2. So that becomes, this is 25, yani ke 0.25 X aa gaya. And in second case, 2,760 minus X into 12.5 upon 100 into 3. So this is equal to which we have to multiply 2,760 into 12.5 divided by 100 into 3. So that becomes 1,045, 35 minus X into 12.5 into 3. So that becomes minus 0.375x. Now she says the simple interest for both the things is equal. So that means 0.25x is equal to 1035 minus 0.375x. This will be taken on left hand side. So 0.25x plus 0.375x, that is equal to 1035. So this becomes 575 to 56. 0.625x equals to 1035. So x is equal to 1035 divided by 0.625. So your answer is 1656. That means first part is 1656, second part is 2760 minus 1656. That becomes 6, 617, 1104. So these are the two parts, 1656 and 1104. Now next question says, a person borrowed rupees 8,000 at certain rate of simple interest for 2 years and 10,000 at 1% lower than first for R. Suppose the rate of interest is R in this case, and in this case R minus 1. In all he paid 2,500 is interest. So in first case 8,000 into R into 2 upon 100. In second case 10,000 into R minus 1 into 1 upon 100. And total interest paid is 2,500. So you have to find out the rate of interest. So this becomes 160 R plus this becomes 10,000 R. You can say this. This is 100 R minus 100. That is equal to 2,500. So 260 R is equal to 2,600. So R is equal to 10%. So this is called your original interest rate, and the decrease rate is 9%. ठीक है? Next आता है, next thing is compound interest. ठीक है? Now, what is this compound interest? I have already explained you कि when interest is charged on amount due at the beginning of the year, that is called compound interest. And formula for compound interest is the formula for amount is P 1 plus R upon 100 per N. Now P is principal, R is rate of interest, and N is number of years. Now in case of compound interest, the amount becomes future value and principal becomes present value. Now what is this present value and future value? Present value is today's value of tomorrow's money. Whatever money you will be getting in tomorrow, the actual value of that money in today's scenario, that is called your present value. So today's value of tomorrow's money, that is called present value. So principal is basically the tomorrow's money. Principal is called present value. And what is this amount? That is future value, tomorrow's value of today's money. Whatever money you are investing today, in future, the value of that money is called amount or future value. So in that case, the first thing is you have to find out amount. If you want to find out the amount or future value, the formula is P 1 plus R upon 100 per N. And if you want to find out the compound interest, then P 1 plus R upon 100 per N minus 1. This is the formula for compound interest. Now you have to consider the things. In case of compound interest, compounding is very important. Now compounding is number of times interest is computed in a year. How many times your interest is computing in a year? Like bank generally compute interest quarterly, it means after every 3 months. This is called compounding. So compounding can be annually, compounding can be semi-annually, compounding can be quarterly, or compounding can be monthly. So these are the different concepts of compounding: annually, semi-annually, quarterly, and monthly. Annually means once in a year. Annually means once in a year. Semi-annually means after every 6 months. After every 6 months. Quarterly means after every 3 months. And monthly means after every month. So in that case, there is a slight change in the formula. So what the formula is, we'll take the value of K depending upon the compounding. So if compounding is annually, we take K is equal to 1. If compounding is semi-annually, we'll take K is equal to 2. If compounding is quarterly, we'll say K is equal to 4. And monthly, K is equal to 12. Now formula is amount is equal to P 1 plus R upon K into 100 per Kn. This is the formula for amount, because interest rate is generally for the whole period. And if our compounding is different, let's say semi-annually, quarterly, then we have to take interest for that time period only. That's why we divide the interest rate with the compounding value. It is either 1, 2, 4 or 12. So this way you can find out the amount. And if you want to find out the compound interest, then formula is P 1 plus R upon K into 100 per Kn minus 1. This is the formula for compound interest. Now let's take an examples which are how we can find out. Now question is, if Mr. X deposits 5,000 today in a bank which pays 8% interest compounded annually, how much the deposit will grow at the end of 10th year? So that means we have to find out after 10 years whatever be the amount. So we have to find out the amount which are. So formula for amount is principal 1 plus rate upon 100 per 10, because here compounding is annually, to K is equal to 1. So now that means we have to find out the value of 1.08 per 10. Now most important is how to find out 1.08 per 10. So you can easily find out using calculator. The thing is this, first we have to write out 1.08. Multiply equal to, this becomes square. So when we say 1.08 multiply equal to, this becomes 1.08 square. So now you have to just say equal to, because in that case we'll say when we press again equal to, that becomes 1.08 cube, again equal to 1.08 power 4. Now we have computed square, this is cube. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now this is the value up to 10 places, 2.1589. So multiply it with 5,000. So your answer is 10794. Dekho, answer is 10794 point something, 0.6. So they have taken answer 10795. Right? So this is how you can find out the amount of in case of compound interest. Now next thing is, let's take another example. We'll say now they haven't given much question of compound interest in your booklet. The next concept they are discussing, that is called annuity. So you have to understand the concept of annuity. Bacha, what we have discussed till now, we have some sufficient funds and we have deposited that money in some bank account or given a loan to someone. That means we have a lump sum amount which we have given to some person, and after the expiry of the term, we'll get the amount back. So when we have a single inflow of funds, then that is the concept of your principal, and this is related to either simple interest or compound interest. But next concept is annuity. Annuity is periodical flow of money. That means you are sending money periodically, means the interval has been defined. So what we'll say, if I explain you the definition of annuity, annuity is regular payment of fixed amount after fixed interval for a fixed time period. This is called annuity. That means, I just understand it, regular payment means you are making payment regularly, periodically. Amount is fixed. Interval means whether you are paying it annually, quarterly, monthly, semi-annually. That interval should be fixed. Time period, for how many years you are paying it, for 1 year, 2 year, 3 year. So that is the concept of annuity. It means if you are paying in installments, like suppose your father has opened an RD account, recurring deposit account in bank, in which your father is depositing 2,000 monthly for a time period of 3 years. Now 2,000 rupees is fixed. Period is fixed for 3 years, and interval is also fixed. You are monthly depositing 2,000 in the bank account. So in that case, that 2,000 is called annuity. So annuity is if you are depositing some money in installments so that we can save some money, or you can bear some future expenses, or you want some amount in lump sum so that you can plan, you can buy something. So in that case, we'll use the concept of annuity. Like suppose you want to buy a bike. Okay, you went to the dealer said that you have to make a down payment of 20,000, and then afterwards I'll fix your installment. You have to pay 5,000 monthly, and in 3 years the entire money will be paid. Now you are buying that bike in installments, and your installment amount is fixed, your interval is fixed, your time period is fixed. So if you are paying some loan in installments, then that installment is called annuity. Now, suppose you have taken a retirement plan. You want that whenever you retire, you have sufficient funds that you can plan your retirement accordingly because you are in a private job. In that case, when you buy an insurance policy, then you pay the premium annually. So whatever the premium amount you are paying, that is fixed. Your interval is fixed, that you are paying the premium annually, and time period is also fixed. You have to pay the premium for 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. Then that premium amount is called annuity. So annuity is, but when you are paying or depositing some money in installments, then that installment is called annuity. But there are certain conditions of annuity. The amount of installment should be fixed, the interval should be fixed, and time period should be defined. So that is called annuity. Like suppose the person says 5,000 is deposited at the end of every month. Now this is called annuity. Okay, 10,000 is deposited at the beginning of each quarter. That is again an annuity because the interval is quarterly. If they are paying monthly, again this is called the annuity because interval is fixed and time period is also defined. So that is annuity. Now annuity is of two types. Annuity is of two types. One is annuity regular and second is annuity due or immediate. So we have two types of annuity. One is annuity regular, another is annuity due or immediate. So when we talk about annuity regular, the basic difference between these two is the date on which you are making payment of the installment. Like if you are making paying installment at the end of the interval. If you are paying installment at the end of interval, then this is called annuity regular. And if you are making the payment in the beginning of interval, then this is called annuity due or immediate. So only difference is the time period at which we are paying the annuity. So if we are paying at the end of the time period, at the end of the interval, then this is called annuity regular. And if we are paying in the beginning of the interval, then this is called here, annuity due or immediate. Right? The question will specify whether the installment is paid at the end or at the beginning. Now, suppose if the question is silent, it is not giving any information about the payment, then you have to assume that this is called annuity regular. So that means in the default scenario, which will apply in default scenario, we have annuity regular will apply. Right? So in case of annuity, we have two types of value. One is called future value and another is present value. So first thing, a very important thing you have to keep in mind, key, there is two values. One is future value and another is present value. Because when there is a single inflow of funds, then the question, then that inflow has present value as well as future value. Means if I am investing the amount in lump sum, then the amount that I am investing, that is called principal. Principal is known as present value. And whatever the amount I am getting after expiry of the time period, that is called future value. So in single inflow, there is present value as well as future value in the same investment. But in case of annuity, okay, either we have future value or we have present value. There is not even one scenario in which annuity has both the values. You have present value as well as future value. So in case of installments, either you are depositing the money in installments so that you can get the amount in future, that is called future value, or you have received something in present. Like the example, you have bought a bike. So bike is of 1 lakh and you got the bike, and the payment of that bike you are doing in installments. So that is the concept of present value. So in case of annuity, either you will compute future value or you will compute present value. There is not even a single scenario in which annuity comprises of both present value as well as future value. This thing you have to keep it in mind. Now, how to find out future value as well as present value? So in that case, you have to understand the formulas. Fine. So let's take the example. We'll discuss first formulas and then I'll give you the example of that formulas. So the thing is this, we'll say present value and future value. So we have annuity and we have to find out, in case of annuity, we have two concepts. Either we have to find out future value of an annuity, or we have to find out present value of annuity. So either one value you will find out, either you will get future value or you will get present value. Now suppose you are finding out the future value. Now you have two scenarios. We have annuity regular or annuity due or immediate. Annuity due or immediate. In case of annuity regular, the formula of future value is A 1 plus I power n minus 1 upon I. This is annuity regular. So A is your annuity installment. I is your rate of interest upon K into 100 depending upon compounding. And N is your NK, number of compounding into number of years. So this is the formula of finding out the future value of annuity regular. And if the scenario is future value of annuity due or immediate, in that case, first we have to find out future value of annuity regular. Then multiply the value with 1 plus I, because for every annuity, you will get one amount of interest extra. For example, you are depositing rupees 2,000 monthly in a bank account, in a bank RD. So suppose your RD starts from April. The first installment you have paid on 30th April. And this is 1 year RD. That means the interest you are getting for this amount, 2,000, that is for 11 months, because April month has already been gone. The amount which you have paid on 31st May, that is 2,000. On this 2,000, you will get interest for 10 months and so on. But when we are depositing the money in the beginning of month, like we can say we have deposited it on 2nd of April, that means the amount 2,000 will get interest on complete 12 months. So for every annuity, you will get one installment of interest extra. That's why we have multiplied it with 1 plus I. This is the formula of future value of annuity regular and annuity due or immediate. Now, if we want to find out the present value, so in present value also, we have two scenarios. One is present value of annuity regular and second is present value of annuity due or immediate. Regular and annuity due or immediate. Now, what's the formula? In case of present value of annuity regular, A 1 minus 1 plus I power minus n upon I. This is the formula for present value of annuity regular. Now A is your annuity, whatever the amount you are paying in installments. I is your rate of interest, which is equal to R upon K into 100. N is NK, means number of years into compounding. How many times you are paying in a year. If it's annually, then K is 1. It's semi-annually, K is 2. Quarterly, K is 4. And monthly, K is 12. So this way you can find out the present value of annuity regular. Now, if we want to find out present value of annuity due or immediate, then what we'll do, first find out annuity present value by, as case of annuity regular, for n minus 1 years. And then add the last installment of annuity, because you are not getting any interest on that installment. This is your annuity due or immediate. Now let's try to find out some questions so that you have a clarity what is present value and what is future value. So let's take an example from your book. So suppose we'll say The question is, Mr. X will receive 1500 at the end of every year starting from today. Okay? And this will continue for next 5 years. How much deposit he has to make today if interest rate is 10% per annum? So you have to deposit today. So today means you have to find out present value. So whenever they'll ask you what you have to deposit today, that means present value, so that you can get 1500 at the end of every year. That means annuity is annual. Starting from today means this is called annuity due or immediate. So whenever the keyword is starting from today, that means that is the scenario of annuity due or immediate. And total time period is 5 years. So 1500 is your annuity. So I have told you the formula. Present value of annuity due or immediate, A 1 minus 1 plus I per minus n minus 1 years upon I plus A. This is the formula. This is the formula for annuity of present value in case of due or immediate whenever they say. So annuity is 1500. 1 minus rate of interest is 10%, that is 1.1 per minus total time period is 5 years, so n minus 1 becomes 4 years upon 0.1 plus 1 installment you have to add. So bacha, whenever you have to find out the negative part, the best thing is you just inverse that value and find out the positive part. That means 1 divided by 1.1, this becomes negative value of 1.1 per minus 9. Now we have to find out part 4. So into equal to this becomes square cube 4. So you can find out the entire question. You can solve the entire question with the help of calculator. So this is the value of 1.1 per minus 4. So first we have to subtract 1. Okay? Then divided by 0.1 into multiply by 1500. So this becomes 4754. 4754.8 plus 1500. So your answer is, this is 7512 4156 6254.8. This will be the present value. They have done the question wrongly, bacha. Whenever they say starting from today, in that case the scenario will be present value of due or immediate. But they have solved the question as it is using regular annuity. So 1500 at the end of every year has starting from today. So we are doing wrong. This is not n minus 1, this is n, because 1500 you are getting at the end of every year. So this is the scenario of annuity regular, not immediate. So again rectify the question. So we'll get this value. So let's solve it again. So we don't need to add a into this because this is not the case of annuity due or immediate. So this is minus 5 upon I. So 1.1 per minus 5 divided by 0.1. So that means 1 divided by 1.1. This is the inverse part into 5/5 part. 2, 3, 4, 5. Then minus 1 divided by 0.1 into 1500. So answer is 5686.18. This is the answer. This is how you can find out present value of annuity due or immediate. You don't need to use this formula because in that case you have to look at the table to find out the future value or present value. But the formula which I have written to you, in this way you can solve any question with the help of calculator. Okay. So they have given a proper differentiation. If there is a single inflow, then future value is P1 plus R upon R per N, and present value is P1 plus R per amount upon 1 plus R per N. And when there is regular annuity, that means at the end of the interval, then formula is, I have told you the formula, A 1 plus I power n minus 1 upon I. And if it is a due or present value, then the formula for present value is A 1 minus 1 plus I power minus n upon I. Similarly, if it is due or immediate, then formula is A 1 plus I power n minus 1 upon I into 1 plus I. And if it is a scenario of present value, then A 1 minus 1 plus I power minus n minus 1 upon I plus A. So this is the formula of present value of annuity due or immediate. Fine. Let's solve few more questions if they have given you any question. Now this, let's say Mr. P opened a RD account in a bank, starting depositing semi-annual installments in arrear amounting 5,000 for 5 years. That means your annuity is 5,000. Time period is 5 years. Rate of interest is 6% per annum, but compounding is semi-annually. What will be the majority amount? That means you have to find out the future value of annuity regular. So what does that means? A 1 plus I power n minus 1 upon I. Now in that case, R is equal to rate upon 200 because it is compounding semi-annually. So I is 6 upon 200, that means 0.03. So annuity is 5,000. Interest rate is 1.03 for how many years? 5 years minus 1 upon 0.03. So first we have to find out 1.03 power 5. First line multiply equal to, this is square, cube, fourth power, fifth power. Minus 1 divided by 0.03 into 5,000. So this is the answer. So your answer is 26. I think they have done something wrong. Answer is 26545. Because 1.03, oh sorry, it's not 5, it's 10 because compounding is semi-annually. That means number of installments will be 10. So 1.03 power 10. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Minus 1. Minus 1. So divided by 0.03 into 5,000. So your answer is 57320. So our answer is perfectly fine. So this is how you can find out future value of annuity. Now there is one more concept. One is effective rate of interest and second is called nominal rate of interest. Now what is the difference between the both? Nominal rate of interest is the interest rate which is promised to you. Now whatever the questions you have done in case of compound interest, they'll say na, at the rate of 10% per annum, annually, quarterly, semi-annually. So whatever the interest rate is defined by the bank, this is called nominal rate of interest. And effective rate of interest is whatever the interest you are actually getting. That is called effective rate of interest. Now say what is the difference between effective and nominal? I'll take an example. Suppose your principal is 1 lakh and rate of interest is 12% per annum. Fine. So now if your compounding is annually, that means you will be getting one installment interest one time in a year. So that is 1 lakh into 12%, that becomes 12,000. That means whatever they have promised me, they have given me that amount. This is called annually. Now second concept is, suppose they will provide me interest semi-annually. That means after every 6 months. Then first installment will be after 6 months and that is 1 lakh into 6%, that becomes 6,000. Second interest will be, it's not on 1 lakh, now it's on 1 lakh 6,000 because in case of compound interest, interest is charged on amount. So 6% of 1,06,000, that becomes 6,360. That means the total interest for 1 year is 12,360. So interest rate is 12,360 upon 1 lakh into 100. So that is 12.36%. Now this is called effective rate of interest. Ki they have promised you to give interest that is 12% per annum, but actually you are getting interest for the whole year, that is 12,360, that is 12.36%. So that is the reason when compounding is more than once in a year, then your effective rate of interest is more than your nominal rate of interest. So in this case, our nominal rate of interest is 12% and our effective rate of interest is 12.36%. Now suppose I'll take another example, that is of quarterly. Now in first quarter, you will get interest 1 lakh, but 12% is for whole year. That means 3% for the quarter. So 3%, according to 3%, our first installment of interest is 3,000. Our second installment is 1,03,000 into 3%, that is 3,090. Our third installment is 1,06,090 into 3%. So that becomes, I think it's 1,060, 1,06,090 into 3%. So that is equal to 3,182.7. And fourth installment is 1,06,090 plus 3,182.7. This is equal to this 1,09,272.7 into 3%. Find out into 3%. 0.03. So that is equal to 3,278.2. So we'll say this becomes 12,550. So if I deposit it with total amount, my effective rate of interest is 12.55%. So this is the difference between nominal interest rate and effective rate of interest. So if you want to find out effective rate of interest, then formula is 1 plus R upon K into 100 per K minus 1 into 100. So this is the formula for effective rate of interest. Now similarly, the question which we have done till now, if we want to find out the effective rate of interest for 12% compounding quarterly, so 1 plus 12 upon 4 into 100 per 4 minus 1 into 100. So what it becomes 1.03 per 4, 234 minus 1 into 100. So that is 12.55%. Now let's do a few questions. Find the compound interest on 1 lakh for 4 years at 5% per annum. So 1,000 is principal. Compound interest rate is 5% per annum for 4 years minus 1. Now this is the formula for compound interest. Through this formula you can directly. Otherwise you can find out compound interest as amount minus principal. So this is 1.05 per 4, 234 minus 1 into 1,000. So that becomes 215.5. Because our value is 0.2155 into, we have to multiply it with 1,000. So answer is 215.5. Now next question is, in what time will a sum of money double itself at 5% per annum compound interest? Sum of money double. That means if principal is 100, then amount becomes 200. So rate of interest is 5%, compound interest time we have to find out. So formula is amount is equal to P 1 plus R upon 100 per N. So amount is 200, principal is 100, rate of interest is 5% and number of years we have to find out. So this is equal to 2 is equal to 1.05 per n. Now this is the situation that can be solved by hit and trial as well, or you can take the help of log as well. In the last class, I have explained you how to calculate log. So I'll explain you both the methods. Now say I have to find out 1.05 per n equals to 2. So in that case, you can take the help of log if the answer is integer, like 1.05 into square. This is 2. Now we have to find out the power till we get to 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 14 in 2 raised per 14, it's 1.97. And in 2 raised per 15, it's 2.07. It means my answer lies between 14 to 15 years. So this is called hit and trial method. And if you want the exact answer, then you have to take the value of log. So in that case, applying log on both sides, log 2 is equal to log 1.05 per n. So that becomes log 2 is equal to n log 1.05. Now I have explained you how to find out the log. So let's say 2. So first thing is find square root 19 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Minus 1 into 227695. Now this is the log of 2.3010. Similarly, you have to find out log of 1.05. 1.05 square root 19 times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Minus 1 into 227695. So this becomes 0.0211. 0.0211. I think there may be some mistake. 2119. So if I say 0.3010 divided by 0.02119, so that is equal to 14.2 years. So our answer is perfectly fine, 14.2 years. Fine. So this is the way you can find out. Now next question is the difference between simple and compound interest on a sum put out for 5 years at 3% was this. Find out the sum. So this is a very good question. Now suppose the principal is X. Rate of interest is 3% and time period is 5 years. So this is the formula for simple interest. So this becomes 0.15x. Now if you want to find out compound interest, that is X. 1 plus 3 upon 100 per 5 minus 1. This is the formula for compound interest. For that, we have to find out the value of 1.03 per 5. 2, 3, 4, 5 minus 1. So that becomes 0.15927. 0.15924. Take at least 4 to 5 decimal places. 74x. Now difference between both is given, but make sure the compound interest is always greater than simple interest. So 0.15924x minus 0.15x, that is equal to 46.80. That means 0.009274x, that is equal to 46.80. So x is equal to 46.80 divided by 0.009274. So this is 46.8 divided by 0.009274. So answer is 5,046 rupees. So our x is there is some mistake in the question, 1.03 per 5. So this will be 0.159. They took it 0.16. They took it 0.16, bacha. So that's why 0.16 minus 0.15, that becomes 0.01. So if we do 46.86 divided by 0.01, so answer is 46.86 divided by 0.01. Bacha, always keep in mind the fractions value. How much fractions you are taking, it will change your answer. Like my answer is also perfectly fine, but they took only 2 decimal places. They took 0.159 as 0.16. But I took 0.159274. So according to them, answer is 4680. And according to me, answer is 46.8 divided by 0.009274. The answer is 5046. So that means there is a variation in 300s. So make sure that you have to check it out what values they are giving you. So generally your book will follow answers up to 2 decimal places only. So you just take 2 decimal places, 0.16. So 0.16 minus 0.15, that is equal to 0.01. So 46.80 divided by 0.01, that is equal to 4680. Fine. Next question is, now, what is the present value of 1,000 due in 2 years at 5% compound interest? Now, what this says, 1,000 due in 2 years, that means 1,000 is the amount. And this is you are getting in future. So you have to find out present value. So I have told you when there is a question of present value as well as future value, then that means this is single inflow. This is not annuity. So your amount is 1,000 and you have to find out the principal when interest is paid yearly. So amount upon 1 plus rate of interest part 2. So this is the formula when we are paying annually. So 1,000 divided by 1.05 square. So 1.05 square, that is equal to 1.1025. So 1,000 divided by 1.1025, that is equal to 1,000 divided by 1.1025, that is equal to 907 rupees. But if it is semi-annually, then formula becomes 1,000 1 plus 5 upon 200 par 2 into 2. So in that case, this becomes 5 divided by 200. So this becomes 1.025. Into, we have to find out 4th part, square, cube, and 4. So now divide 1.1038. So 1,000 divided by 1.1038, that is equal to 905.6, that means 906 rupees. This way you can compute the present value. Now, what it says, a sum of money invested at compound interest payable yearly amounts to 10,816 at the end of second year and 11,248 at the end of third year. Now, a sum of money invested at compound interest payable yearly, 10,816 at the end of second year. Matlab, after 2 years, it will give you 10,816. And at the end of third year, it will give you 11,248.64. So, bacha, the difference here is 2 years and the difference here is 3 years. So in case of compound interest, whatever amount you are getting after 2 years, that becomes your principal. This becomes your amount. You will get rate of interest from here. So we have to find out interest rate. So formula is 11248.64. That is 10816 into 1 plus R upon 100 par 1, because this is after 1 year. So 1 plus R upon 100, that is equal to 11248.64 divided by 10816. So you can calculate it, calculator, with the help of calculator, 11248.64 divided by 10816. So this is equal to this, minus 1 into 100. So that becomes 4%. So interest rate is 4%. Now we have to find out the principal. So after 2 years, the amount becomes 10,816. So I have to find out the principal. So that becomes 10,816 amount 1 plus R upon 100 per time 2 years. So that means 10816 divided by 1.04, then divided by 1.04. So this is equal to 10,000. So principal is 10,000. So next question, calculate the value 5 years hence of deposit of 1,000 made today when interest rate is 8% per annum, simple interest and compound interest. In case of simple interest, amount formula for amount is P1 plus RT upon 100. So that is 1,000, 1 plus 8 into 5 upon 100. So this is 1,000 into 1.4. That becomes 1,400. Okay, so this is simple interest 1,400, 400. And if you want to find out the amount in case of compound interest, then formula is P1 plus 8 upon 100 per 5. So that is 1.08 per 5, 2, 3, 4, 5 minus 1 into 1,000. So that becomes 469 rupees. That means 1469. Bilkul say. So our amount is 1469 and amount is 11,469. 1,000 becomes 1,469. So simple interest we are getting, that is 400, and compound interest we are getting, that is 469. So next question is, a finance company offers to give 8,000 after 12 years in return for 1,000 deposited today. Find out. So 1,000 you are depositing today, that is principal. 8,000 you are getting after 12 years, that is amount. And time is 12 years, you have to find out rate of interest. Interest offered per annum. Okay, so that means they haven't mentioned properly. This is the case of compound interest. So 8,000 is equal to 1,000. 1 plus R upon 100 per 12. So 8 is equal to 1 plus R upon 100 per 12. So that means you have to find out 8 per 1 by 12. But there is another formula. If whenever you have to find out powers in this way, then you have one formula. First, press square root 12 times. Subtract 1. Then if we have to find out inverse power, then divide by 12. Or you can say multiply by 1 by 12, that is 0.083. If we take the fractional value. Then again add 1 and then press multiply equal to 12 times. Now this is the formula through which you can find out the 8 power 1 by 12. Now say 8, press square root 12 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Minus 1, then divided by 12, then plus 1, then multiply equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Right? This is the value. So minus 1 into 100. So your rate of interest is 18.92%. So if you check it out, 18.92, which is equivalent to 19%. So through this way, you can find out the answers. Now, if you want to find out the effective rate of interest of 8% nominal rate quarterly, so I have explained you the formula 1 plus 8 quarterly, so divided by 400 par 4 minus 1 into 100, that is called effective rate of interest. So that is 1.02 par 4, 2, 3, 4 minus 1 into 100. So effective rate of interest is 8.24% per annum. Fine, bacha. So that's all about your class today. So we have discussed ratios, proportion, and interest. In interest, we have discussed mainly three concepts: simple interest, compound interest, and annuity, which is a very important concept. And there will be questions of these: simple interest, compound interest, and annuity. So in the next class, we'll discuss another topic. So if you have any doubt, so there is no doubt. There is no doubt in the question answers chat box. So that's all for today's class. So just solve the questions. And if you have any doubt, we have the next class at 3 to 5. We'll discuss the doubts from any of the topics that we have discussed till now. In statistics, we have discussed central tendency, and in mathematics, we have discussed two portions: ratio, proportion, and interest. So that's all for today, bacha. Thank you. And I am available for your doubts. So if you have any doubt, please ask your doubt. Anybody, please, if you have any doubts, send your doubts in the question answers chat box. Fine, bacha. So if you have any doubts, you can send your doubts on my WhatsApp number. Okay, so that's my WhatsApp number. So send your doubts on this WhatsApp number, bacha. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Next class is at 3 o'clock. I'll join accordingly, sir. Thank you.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.